Recording in progress.
Hello and welcome to the Promethean channel. Um,
Is that what we
we
call
are
this?
talking
Is that what
about
we settled on?
what?
Is that what we settled on?
I don't know.
Promethean channel. That's good. That's good.
Promethean, the ProTube, the
Right?
PromeTube.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, that's,
All right.
anyway,
Okay. Sorry.
we are Promethean, and today we are down a Dan, which is sad. We miss
Yeah.
Dan.
Dan's around. He's busy. Poor guy. That's
Dan's
all right.
not with us.
Dan's no longer with us. Till next time.
Dan's no longer with us on this screen, but I think he's in the room somewhere.
Right now, he's around. He might chime in.
Might be doing work for once.
We'll see.
Anyways, we're talking about books that have been turned into other media.
Yeah.
So maybe a book that's been turned into a movie, or a book that's been turned into a comic book. And I think I'd be willing to even include some books that have been turned into radio dramas, but not audiobooks.
Books that have been turned into movies, and then had books written about the movie with the pictures in the middle that we all read in junior high.
Yeah.
Right? With the but that says now a major motion picture.
Yep.
And he thought it was cool. I will probably end up defaulting to the crappy adaptations, because those are the ones, of course, that stick in my head of books made into movies. I honestly, and then I'm ashamed to say, books, like when we're saying like literature, prose that have been made into comics, I don't have a wealth of knowledge about that, because I guess it maybe doesn't speak to me, because I'm going to read the book and I'm going to read a comic book for the comic bookness. And I feel like when you go from book to comic book, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I don't quite get it. If someone wants to explain it to me.
Well, an example of this, if this is probably a little bit more on the edge of my generation. There was the books that did really well. They were called the Percy Jackson series, or
I've heard of them. Yes,
right.
Yes. My kids
they did a series of comic books based on it's basically they took the comic book, or they took the books and they turned them into comic books. Those are the ones I'm most familiar with.
Okay.
And they're, I mean, the thing is that it is a different medium. And so you get to see, I think it's kind of the interesting thing about when you turn a book into a comic book, you don't have to rely on real people. So you can portray the character as they're described in the book, and you can portray the scenes as they're described in the book without losing some of the magic. I mean, like you take some of these really epic action scenes in books, and then you try and put them into movies, and then they become CGI nightmares.
Yeah,
a lot of
there's
times.
less interpretation.
Right. But when you put it into a comic book, you still have that artist interpretation, but they can be a little bit more true because they're not limited by physics.
And I like that. I'm not opposed to it, because I think I'm going to ruin it. There's like a trope is like comic books are the gateway to reading, or the gateway to knowledge. I'm sure there's something like that, but because way back comics were like, oh no, that's just cheap, that's just trash. Which my kids got started on Calvin and Hobbes, which is comic strips. My son taught his sister to read by reading Calvin and Hobbes to her, which we have videos of. Adorable, and I love it. And then manga, my daughters devour manga, and then they read books as well. We've talked about Sergio, his art in the Action Bible. We are a Bible reading family, but my daughter devoured the Action Bible because it's a comic book, and it's not the whole Bible, because it would, if it was a graphic novel, it would be like
it'd be a tome.
But it's highlights of the Bible, and my daughter devours it. So great, I love it, and she shared it with friends. So Bible, 66 books however many we're talking.
However many books, yeah. And another example, I remember, and I think I still have it, Shakespeare's The Tempest turned into a comic book.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and it made the
classic.
Like when I was a kid, or I wasn't a kid, when I was a teenager and I got it, I think I got it at like if anybody remembers the Scholastic book Still,
Yes.
which they still do.
Yeah.
They still do. They're still there. But like, if you're not in elementary school anymore, they don't have them anymore. But I got a copy.
I can't go
from
to an elementary school and just pick up some Scholastic books now, or
Nope.
Right?
Book
But anyway,
fair.
I got it from one of those, and it was like, I don't understand the language of when I was reading the Shakespeare, and I know that's a play, but I didn't see the play. But the comic book helped me kind of understand what was going on, especially in something like The Tempest, which is a little bit more fantastical. So, like,
right.
putting it into a play adaptation, you're like, I still don't know what's going on. Right? But the comic book, it was like, oh, I get it. I understand. And so that can be, like, especially some, like, a comic book can convey, like, some elements of a story that maybe, like, you read it and you kind of just read over it, and then you see it and you're like, oh, that's what he meant. Oh, that's a lot cooler.
Yeah.
In terms of movies, I think one of the I mean, you have any movie from a book is an adaptation, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be one-to-one, and you got to kind of go into it and expecting it. So I'll start with some good examples that I liked. I really liked The Lord of the Rings. The adaptation of The Lord of the Rings is fantastic. It's not one-to-one true.
Not perfect.
If you read Lord of the Rings and you go and you've never watched the movies, I mean, congratulations. But if you did that and then you go and watch the movies, like, Aragorn's not the same.
Right.
Frodo's not the same, and even, like, the order of things isn't quite the same.
Right.
But I think he does a really good job, Peter Jackson, and did a really good job trying to convey the overall story, like what was going on, the battle of good and evil in Frodo and in the world.
Yeah.
I think they did a really good job conveying the emotions and what's happening in the book in a screen format, where if you tried to do like a copy and paste from the book.
Well, because it's impossible, and I get it. And I've said this before in my rant. I can be of two minds. I'm capable of enjoying it for what it is, and I'm also capable of nitpicking it to death, which I enjoy. I enjoy both. So when you have a book like books like Lord of the Rings, all of the books, the trilogy, you can't have the internal of the characters. You can't have the exposition. There's so much that's relayed in the written word that just can't be put on screen unless you have a narrator, or, which makes it clunky. It's impossible. So, yes, Jim, taking the Lord of the Rings and turning it into a movie, they did a really great job. There are some blunders that, of course, that I think they gave up to have some mass market appeal, but in the grand scheme of, I
go with the extended edition.
Well, there are very few adaptations that have done as well as Lord of the Rings. Whereas The Hobbit just made me angry because I love The Hobbit, and it was good. It was enjoyable. It was tolerable, and then it was insufferable. I thought the movies just went like that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And I tried to enjoy it, but like the movie was just bad, and it was so I wasn't able to. When the movie gets bad, I can't enjoy it. I mean, Harry Potter.
Only Hobbit you need. This is the only Hobbit you need.
No, you know what? I think I have that. Does that have a sleeve? Does that one come with a? Oh,
yeah. Mine doesn't have a sleeve. Mine's just the classic. I love how we're all pulling out our books. Mine's the classic cover.
Nice
This
cover.
Hobbit.
Backwards on
this
my
Hobbit. We're hobbiting it all over.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I know. I bring this one up frequently. You want to listen to the Hobbit? Yes.
That's a good one.
Yes, see, hear, and read. Yes.
See, that Gandalf is what they based this one on.
Yes, this is 1,000 points out there. You two, who voiced Gandalf in the Rankin Bass recording and video?
Leonard Nimoy?
No,
it's not Nimoy.
Quick, Dan's over there. Shout it out. Shout it. Who voiced Gandalf in the 77 Rankin Bass?
Houston, right?
Louder.
Houston.
John Huston.
John Huston.
Angelica Houston's father. Angelica Houston of...
Almost said Orson Bean.
But Orson Bean is Bilbo. So we've been talking about adaptation. We touched on Lord of the Rings. We talked about books made into the comic, the limitations of each medium. and so forth. I was going to say I've enjoyed The Road. The Road is one of the few books that I've reread.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
a relatively quick read. The book is really good. My wife will not watch it with me. It is a depressing movie.
Anybody who's read this, if you just
it's-
say that scene, everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, and especially if
Everybody
you've got
shudders.
kids. If you've got kids, especially if you're a dad, oh man, Jim, it's a good book. It's rough. It's post-apocalypse. He never spells out what happened. It's just a depressing hellscape.
It's a quick read though.
It's a dad and his son.
You got to get used to like the format of like who's talking.
Cormac McCarthy has his own way of writing.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a lot of dialogue tags. He uses pronouns a lot, but The Road is good because it's a dad and a son. So it's just sometimes they'll have dialogue and it'll be like the dad will be like, "You doing okay? Uh-huh. You sure? Yep. Really? Uh-huh." And I have to remember like who's dad, son.
Dad,
dad, son. But the movie's really good too. It's Aragorn, Vigo. Vigo, and that skinny kid who was in a couple of things for a little while, he was kind of a flash in the pan.
Timothy Chalamet.
No.
Haley Joel.
No.
I think Haley Joel Osment was not a flash in the pan, but that aside.
Cody Smith McPhee.
Yes, he did a couple movies. He's probably still.
He's a strange-looking individual now.
He's an odd-looking kid. Usually, when kids are cute, they age into weird-looking kids. they start.
Is that what happened to you?
And they.
Oh,
yes, that was cute. That was adorable. My mom would cut my hair with a bowl on my head. That was adorable. So The Road is my example of I enjoy the movie. I enjoy the book. I thought they did a great job.
The graphic novel is going to be good.
Voyage of the Dawn Treader is the one that makes me angry because it is one of my favoriteest books, my favorite Chronicles of Narnia book, and the movie was terrible. They treated the viewers like they're idiots, and they made it all just trash. They went
They tried to make it like a standalone.
Yep, with Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian was okay. Voyage of the Dawn Treader was awful. I thought that. All right, I'm done. Clock.
Done.
Have like
I will say, like,
stick with it.
The Harry Potter series was good too. The movies did a good job adapting the books.
The audiobooks were amazing with Stephen Fry.
Well, we can't do audiobooks because they're not really an adaptation. It's just somebody reading it, but they are fantastic.
They are good.
Yeah. And there's too much source material. Like Harry Potter is so much.
Yeah.
You can't throw it. And they were making movies not knowing quite how it was going to go. So I get it. Sometimes they killed or they got rid of characters. And if my wife was here, she'd know all. They kind of messed things up, knowing what was going to happen, not knowing what was going to happen later. And so there was no way to fix it. But whatever. I enjoy the Harry Potter movies. I enjoy the books. There are some things where
I think every vampire series probably started off as a book and became a really crappy TV show.
Just about
Twilight.
Except for Dracula.
Except for Dracula, that stands the test of time.
I mean,
good old Bram.
Aren't
It
fantastic.
was the movie first, actually.
Yes.
So was Frankenstein.
I don't think that's true.
Prove it.
I think I might be able to do that one, actually. But let's talk about, as you said, let's talk about some bad adaptations.
I had to look this one up. I forgot about it. Aragon, Jim, Rory, you remember that?
Yes.
Book? The movie is awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Book
And
is
so
great.
are the Percy Jackson movies. They're terrible. And my kids were so excited. We went to the theater to see the first one, and my son was just like, he's pretty like even keeled. He's like, I can enjoy whatever. He was like, this is awful.
Which one? Both of them, or just the
first one, and then the second one we didn't see till it was on, streaming or whatever.
And the first one was
Blockbuster.
terrible, and then the fact that they even got a second one surprises me. But like Aragon, my gosh, I read the book.
Yeah,
I
the
watched
book was
the
alright.
movie, and I'm like, this is, I mean,
Lord of the Rings?
Not Aragorn.
Aragon.
Dragon with an E instead of a D.
See what you did there.
Dagron. It's Dagron.
So creative.
Spelled Aragon.
So creative.
I said consummate V's.
Consummate.
That's the one written by a 15-year-old. Right?
Yeah, he did all right for a 15-year-old.
For a 15-year-old,
I mean,
I never read them. My
the-
niece and nephew liked them.
and the books, to be fair, the books were decent. Like, I mean, it's I wouldn't say it's the peak of authorship, but they're good. I enjoyed them. But like, the movie was like they didn't know what they were doing with it. They didn't know where it was going, and they just threw something together and they slapped the name Aragon on it.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
not at all like the book. And
I read an interview. The guy who wrote World War Z, he said when they made the movie, he said it has 3 things in common with my book: the word world, the word war, and the letter Z.
Yeah, there's nothing like it.
It's tough though to take that and make it into a movie.
Because that'd be a very long movie. If you actually went by the book.
Oh gosh, World War Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just because he did it like day by day, right?
It's interviews of all these people. Yep, and it's all like it's not linear. It's their accounts.
Yeah.
The audiobook is really good. It's got a cast of charactters that read. Well, one of them.
That's fun.
It's got. No, that's the movie. Luke Skywalker.
Mark
Hamill.
The Joker.
And Alan
Rickman.
Alan Alda.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is actually Alan Alda,
not Bill Hader.
Not Bill Hader.
His impression is great.
That'd be funny.
Look up Bill Hader, Alan Alda impersonation. He's.
We'll try and add a link to it. It's really amazing.
Bill Hader is good.
It's ridiculous that like you would ever find out that you can do an Alan Alda
impression.
Like when would that ever come up? How often does that be useful?
Alan Arkin recently left us, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. This year. Yeah. This year, maybe.
Rocketeer.
Yeah.
Glengarry Glenn Ross. Yeah.
Edward Scissorhands.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. All right.
He was Edward Scissorhands, or he was in it?
He was.
Oh, Johnny Depp was
Winona Ryder's
Johnny Depp was Edward Scissorhands.
Alan Arkin as Johnny Depp as Edward Scissorhands.
I would watch that.
That's good. That's like Tropic Thunder.
Good movie. Still good.
It just today that
probably wouldn't fly today.
Robert Downey Jr. was nominated for an Academy Award for that movie.
That's incredible.
That's insane.
Before we were on the air, we were discussing books. Did you know that Mel Torme wrote a novel? Now, Jim Young and Foolish said, I said, well, Mel Torme, a crooner from the 60s, right? But he was also in a Seinfeld episode that would also not fly today. That's the one where Kramer has the Novocaine and the shoes on, and it's like the special kids benefit dinner. It's a great episode. That's a good one with Mel Torme.
He was he showed up in Night Court a bunch because he was
Harry
we brought that up. Yeah,
love Mel Torme.
I also don't know what Night Court is, so
yeah.
They brought it back with
they did for like one season or something.
Yeah,
Larry Kett was in
it,
but that was it. What else was different? What else is dead?
Anyway, we are running out of time.
And we stayed right on topic. They need to make Night Court the book. Turn Night Court into a book now.
And then make it a comic book.
Here's novels, Night Court.
Yeah. Oh, now they should make.
I will say.
Oh, it's an interesting one. Quick. I don't know how many people know this, but before we sign off, did you know that 2001, with Arthur C. Clarke, Stanley Kubrick, the movie, was a movie before it was a book?
Yes, I did know that.
I had no clue until like a year ago that it was a screenplay that Arthur C. Clarke wrote with Stanley Kubrick, and then he turned it into a book, and then he did a series of books after it. But it was a movie first. I was like, that's crazy. I had no idea.
I was gonna say, I think there's only one example, or there's 2 examples of movies that were books where the movie is far superior than the book. There are 2 that I can think of off the top of my head. Forrest Gump was a book first that was just not good.
Oh, okay.
Well, I suppose I shouldn't say it's not good. It's just a very different book, and it's not as good as the movie.
Yeah.
And then Jurassic Park was a book.
I kind of like the book. I'm a Michael Crichton fan.
What I didn't
Well, I mean,
know
you can
Michael-
like the book, but I think
the
we can.
movie's really good.
The movie
It
is
is.
really probably better.
Holds up.
What, Michael Crichton, I didn't know that he was a movie maker. I think before he was a novelist.
Oh, I didn't know that
He was
either.
like a director.
That could make sense,
Right.
yeah.
Really tall. A real tall guy.
Well, and he was also friends with like
Everybody.
yeah. So I mean,
It's kind of
sense.
crazy though. I looked him up and then I saw like it's IMDb.
Oh.
And I was like, he has director credits and like he directed
Because
these movies before he was a novelist.
Congo, really good book.
Good book.
Sphere, or Congo the movie, awful.
Yeah.
Sphere, good book, really hard to read. And actually, I don't think I made it through the movie because that's The Graduate.
Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman. It's that's like a 70s movie or early 80s. Sphere.
Really?
Kind of weird.
Yeah, there's some really good Michael Crichton books, but Congo was bad.
Did you know it was Stephen King who wrote Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah, it's one of his.
Isn't that weird?
Very interesting.
That one,
It's a
that
short
one
story.
doesn't have any like
horror
horror stuff to it. Same with
And it was like Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. It was like it was a full title, and it's a short story.
Stephen King is not relegated to just horror. Some of his famous stuff is horror, but he's also done a fair amount of like the Tower series isn't really the Dark Tower series isn't really horror. It's pretty much fantasy science fiction.
I think most of his books have some sort of
tie-in,
fantastical element. Even the Green Mile. Green Mile, except for that one thing where he heals him with the flies out of his mouth or whatever. That's weird. But anyways, I think
that wraps up our story. Thank you for joining us, Dan. I'm so excited.
Wait. We do still have our music channel. It is just playing music right now. Don't forget, it's in our link. Next week, we're going to learn how to go live. I say we're going to learn how to go live.
We're going to do it.
So we can do a radio show.
Yeah.
I'm going to do classical. This guy's going to do Himalayan throat chanting. And Rory is going to be
personally do it. Just play tracks.
And Rory is gonna do the spoken word live 1 hour. Rory reading poetry.
Yeah,
slam poetry. At least that's gonna be. Okay, that was it.
Point of view.
Of course, like, subscribe, all of those good things, and then follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon.
We appreciate it. All right, I'm done.
So long, and thanks for all the fish. Also a good movie adaptation.
Yeah,
Bye.
Yeah, it's good.
Yes.
And underrated.
Morgan Freeman. Yeah.
Recording stopped.